King of the Hill is one of those shows I don't think enough people truly appreciated until it was gone. There was a time when even I was guilty of considering it nothing more than just that show that came on before The Simpsons. I guess it's because what's good about King of the Hill is so hard to properly quantify. I mean, it's not just that it's funny, or that it was considerably more down-to-earth than a lot of the other animated sitcoms at the time. It had something else about it, as certain as the French say, I don't know what. To highlight what I mean, I've comprised a list of my favorite episodes, and it was hard narrowing it down to just 10. There were a lot of episodes that I loved that didn't make the cut, but I think the ones that I kept paint a really interesting picture of what the show means to me, and hopefully you'll get something out of it as well. So let's not waste any more time, let's get to it. Ha-cha-cha! Number 10. Bobby Goes Nuts, Season 6, Episode 1. Now, I could talk about how this episode speaks to the corrupting nature of power, or the vicious cycle by which victims become victimizers, but let's face it, I love this episode for one reason. Yep, this is the episode where Bobby kicks people in the nuts, over and over again.
I don't know you! Who's next?
After Bobby is beaten up by Chain Wasana-san, Hank talks him into taking a boxing class at the YMCA. The only problem is he takes a woman's self-defense class and only learns to kick people in their junk.
Don't be afraid to shout it. That's my purse! Try it again.
That's my purse! I don't know you!
Now not being used to winning fights, Bobby quickly takes things too far and goes on a nut-cracking rampage, eventually turning on his very father. While certainly not the deepest episode, Bobby Goes Nuts never fails to put a smile on my face. And beyond that, it's a clever little meditation on what happens when we answer violence with violence. And that's why I like it, and that's why it's number 10.
You don't hit people in the balls, you asshole!
Number 9, King of the Anthill, Season 1, Episode 11. From the first time he opened his mouth, Dale Gribble has been an endless source of comedy for King of the Hill, be it his conspiracy theories, his chain smoking, his explosive paranoia, and as we see highlighted in this episode, his childish pettiness.
What are you guys listening to Hank for? I have dedicated my professional career to the study and control of arthropods. I have personally taste tested each and every household insecticide. I have read a book. Now, who do you believe, me or Hank?
Man, oh, Hank more believable.
You see, Hank decides Dale's weekly bug spraying is actually hurting his beloved lawn and asks him to stop. This pushes Dale over the edge, so he decides to sabotage Hank's lawn by planting fire ants. The comedy of this episode, of course, comes from Hank trying everything he can to stop the spread of ants, but the real reason I love this episode is Dale's sliding sanity, and the lengths he'll go to for such a ridiculous revenge.
Oh, no!
I'm gonna kick it harder if you don't come over here.
You shouldn't have fired me. You know what I'm like. I'm capable of any crazy thing.
But my lawn, Dale, you don't mess with a man's lawn.
I had no choice. I tried planting the ants in your driveway, but they didn't take. They couldn't bite through cement. They're weak, like me.
This is also the first time in the series where we really see Hank snap and get ready to kick some ass, a character trait that would be carried over throughout the series. All in all, this is just a really well put together show. Funny, slightly disturbing, all around a really good ride. Number 8, Escape from Party Island, Season 3, Episode 17. Unlike other shows of its kind, King of the Hill never got a movie. It did, however, get a few really epic episodes that you could really feel the scope in. This is one of these episodes. You see, Hank has to take his mother and a group of her friends to Port Aransas to see a miniature museum. The only problem is they choose to go during freaking spring break.
Hey, you kids, knock it off. Come on, some of us are trying to sleep. Okay, you asked for it. You, what room are your parents in? Oh, for goodness sake.
Now, Hank Hill as a character has often been defined by his boringness and crotchetiness, while surprise, surprise, the old women in this episode are even worse than him, so obviously they make for great comedic foils. The highlight of this episode is the actual escape, but the real impact comes in the very, very well done character development for Hank's mother.
Miniatures probably saved your mother's life.
What's that supposed to mean?
Do you know how hard it is to be a woman in this world? I do. Women come in here all the time, and they are sad, and they are lonely, and they are frumpy, and they tell me how my tiny, individually handcrafted investment-grade art is the only thing keeping them sane. Do you understand? Does that sound like your mother?
No. Well, maybe when her marriage to my dad was breaking up, but... So this little glass crap really helped her out, huh? Huh. I guess I owe someone an apology.
Accepted.
This episode also has a really funny B-story of Bill trying to put the moves on Peggy. It doesn't really go anywhere, but it's good for a laugh. This episode is also good for a laugh, and that's why it's number 8. Number 7, Pretty Pretty Dresses, Season 3, Episode 9. King of the Hill is a show that's never been afraid to tackle dark subject matter, and one of the darkest episodes by far just happens to be a Christmas episode of all things. Bill, the eternal sad sack that he is, decides that he can't take another Christmas alone, and figures he'll try and kill himself. Hank and friends take it upon themselves to watch Bill every moment of every day, but this causes Hank to snap under the pressure and lash out at Bill in anger.
Comes back.
She's never coming back. It's so obvious. She doesn't want this stupid stocking.
No.
Or whatever's in this box. Or this. Or this. There. You feel okay?
I don't feel anything.
Great, I knew you'd snap out of this.
This only serves to break Bill entirely, and in his state, he decides that if he can't be with his ex-wife Lenore, then he'll become his ex-wife Lenore. Oh, and did I mention the Hills are having a Christmas party? And if Bill comes, there's a good chance he might get his ass kicked. Hey, this is Texas after all.
We don't take kindly to your types in here.
The episode is just so bold in its depiction of holiday depression. Few other shows would dare touch something like this, let alone try to make it funny. It also has one of my all-time favorite endings. Hank broke Bill, so it's only right that he tries to fix him.
Bill, I am Lenore, and I don't love you.
No, Hank. I'm Lenore.
I've left you forever because you're lazy and no good.
Lenore.
We fight so loud all the neighbors can hear. We fight during the day, we fight during the night.
Lenore, wait, we can work stuff out. I'm a good husband.
Bill, if I wanted to work things out, I would have called. I don't love you anymore. That's it. I don't love you.
That's all. That's why you left?
Number 6, Cotton's Plot, Season 4, Episode 2. There are plenty of episodes that show Hank's father Cotton at his very worst, be it his sexism, his crudeness, or just his overall cruelty to Hank. But Cotton's Plot might very well be Cotton at his best. As the story goes, Peggy is learning to walk again. It's a long story, just go with it. But she hates her physical therapy class. Hardened military vet Cotton offers to help her walk again in return for helping him get the burial plot he's always wanted.
Teach me to walk.
You ready to hate me more than you ever hated anyone in your life?
I already do.
Then we're halfway there.
Since the first episode he appeared, Peggy and Cotton have always been at each other's throats, so to see her actually warm up to him and believe his crazy war stories is actually quite a thing to behold. And while at first it seems Cotton only agreed to help so he could take advantage of Peggy, it seems that he might very well be warming up to her as well. But the cherry on the sundae has to be Hank's speech at the very end, hitting home the real sense of respect he has for his father.
He's no hero. He was just torturing me. He is a complete fraud.
Well, that was something.
What? What are you muttering? Are you actually trying to defend him?
I said that fraud used to be 6'4".
So?
When he came back from the Pacific, he was 5 foot even. A Japanese machine gun blew away his shins. The doctor said he'd never walk again. 18 months later, he walked right over to that doctor, reached up, and punched him in the kidneys. Now, I can't prove what he did at those battles. In fact, I don't even know if the part about hitting the doctor is true, but I do know that my dad doesn't have shins. And somehow he walks. And that's pretty heroic to me. And that is what I was muttering.
Number 5, Saw Massacre, Season 7, Episode 7. Hank Hill is a man not afraid to kick some ass. He actually does it a lot. And in a nice display of continuity, this episode makes the argument that Hank might actually have an anger management problem.
More bouncing that ball! I'm gonna kick your ass. You're out of control, Twiggy! Out of my way, rooster boy. Oh! Ah!
No. Ow.
Ow!
This episode is just a comedic tour de force. We have Hank having to deal with his touchy-feely anger management class. We also have Dale digging tunnels all over the neighborhood, and all these stories dovetailing nicely at the end. While fits of anger can be bad for a person's health, sometimes they can be called for, especially when you live in a neighborhood with people like these.
Get out! Get out! Get out! If you don't get out of that god-dang rat hole now, I'll get my circular saw, come down there, cut off all your fingers and toes. Now move, move, move!
He took you to Rageaholics. Why?
Probably because this whole universe is against me.
Got a little rage.
And now they want me to bottle it up. It makes me so mad!
Number 4, To Kill a Ladybird, Season 4, Episode 9. Hank Hill has a very, let's say, special relationship with his dog, Ladybird, one that makes his son, Bobby, feel very alienated. In retaliation, Bobby takes in a raccoon he names Bandit to be a pet of his very own. When Hank hires Dale to chase the raccoon away, both Dale and Ladybird end up getting bitten by the raccoon and run off. Hank and Bobby need to find them because they may have been infected with rabies.
What does it say?
Well, the earliest symptoms of clinical rabies in humans are chills.
I'm cold, Nancy. So cold.
You're in your underwear, Shug.
And if you thought Dale was crazy back in King of the Anthill, then you ain't seen nothing yet. Dale takes crazy to all new levels when he thinks he might have rabies.
Survival diary update. I have been drinking dewdrops found on the forest leaves, and I have been eating mushrooms and moss. Mostly mushrooms. My rabies has taken a turn for the worse. I am starting to hallucinate. When I close my eyes, I can see strange characters running around chasing colorful geometric shapes in a dark and infinite limbo. I have stopped closing my eyes.
Hell, it gets to the point that we as the audience begin to think he might actually kill Hank. Also, I don't want to spoil the ending, but I would put it right up there with some of the very best. Tragic, sweet, and funny all at once. Number 3, I Don't Want to Wait, Season 5, Episode 3. One of my all-time favorite things about King of the Hill is that most of the characters get actual arcs and change from season to season. You know, unlike other shows where characters change and then quickly change back, or the shows where characters are something different every week, so why the hell should anyone care? You know. Nowhere is what I'm saying more apparent than in the case of Joseph Gribble, who started the series as Bobby's not-too-interesting best friend, who in this episode returns from summer camp having hit puberty and gone through a major growth spurt. All this comes on the heels of Bobby's 13th birthday, and the whole show revolves around the kid's messy transformation from, well, you know, kids to teenagers. All this is funny, of course, but you really get the feeling these characters have changed and nothing will ever be the same again, in the show universe or elsewhere. Number 2, Aisle 8A, Season 4, Episode 5. King of the Hill is a show that revels in making the main characters, and especially the audience, feel uncomfortable for the sake of comedy. But sometimes, like in this episode, they do so much more with that. While her parents are away, Connie, Bobby's on-again, off-again girlfriend, comes to stay with the Hill family, but while there, she has her very first period, and it's up to Hank to deal with it, even if it means going down the feminine hygiene aisle.
Oh, couldn't you just give her this stuff? You are a hospital.
No, you have to go and buy them.
I mean, let's say I got stitches. You might send me home with a box of Band-Aids if I asked for them, right?
Band-Aids aren't going to work in this situation. Please, don't try Band-Aids.
As a younger DVD Grouch, this was the first time I had ever heard of a woman's monthly visitor, so I could really relate to the uncomfortableness felt by Hank and the confusion felt by Bobby. Much like my number 3 pick, this is an episode about growing and changing. It also has to be one of the most brutally honest pieces of comedy that I've ever seen ever.
I was really mean to Bobby, and I don't know why. He annoying little boy. Mom! Con Jr., you have a PMS. It's hard, but very easy to understand. You just yell and yell, or you just cry and cry. But it feels like I'm doing both of those at the same time. Connie, you feel things more now. make sad movies truly excellent. You watch Titanic on the right day, it blow you away.
And my number one pick is Returning Japanese, Part 1 and Part 2, Season 6, Episode 21 and 22. One of the most unfortunate things about King of the Hill was it never got an official ending. Oh sure, it got to finish out its last season, but the episodes were played out of order, and the actual last broadcast episode was this weird anti-Canadian cluster crap. But if Returning Japanese had been the final word on King of the Hill, then it would have ended on a really high note. This episode has the Hill family take a trip to Japan so Cotton can reunite with the widow of a man he killed during the war. Only she's not a widow, she's an ex-lover with a son Cotton fathered. Hank, of course, loves the idea of having a brother, but when Junichiro refuses to acknowledge Cotton as his father,
It's unforgivable to come here after 50 years and think you can buy me hamburger and be my father? No. I humbly wish my mother had never met you.
Hey, Junty Joe, you got a bit of the hill temper in you.
My name is not Junty Joe. It is Junichiro. You are not my father. I am not a hill. It is a shameful name. I formally renounce the hill blood that is in me.
Cotton goes on a rampage through the streets of Tokyo with plans to spit in the face of the Japanese emperor. So it's up to Hank and Junichiro to work together to navigate the urban jungle of Tokyo and save the day. This episode has it all: humor, heart, great character moments, and it stands as my personal favorite King of the Hill episode ever. So that's my list. I'm sure y'all have your own favorite episodes, and you're welcome to share them in the comments section. Until then, I'm gonna get me some propane and propane accessories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.